My name is Phil Wright, and I was in the Air Force, which is known as in Atlanta at that particular time. We was stationed where the airport is now. In fact, the Army took over it, and known as the Army Air Force back then. And we wore the ODs all just like the Army did, until after I came home. I was discharged, then it changed over to the Blues. And I was stationed in England, France, and Germany, all three places. The Mauritania, the ship we went over, and we went over by ourselves. 7,000 of us on that one ship, which was a luxury liner back before the war. And we landed at Liverpool in England, and I was stationed in different places over England. And then I left at Southampton going into France. It took us 21 days to cross the English Channel. But it was just day in and day out, just seeing that going on. And I moved in from Compiègne. I flew into Erding, Germany. And Munich was tore all to pieces. I mean, it was bombed. And Erding was the same way. Because they hit Erding, they said, that just the day before that our message was signed. But then they flew us, and then we took over the base there in Erding, Germany. And it was a beautiful place. I've never been in a place before that as nice as that was. I was with the motor pool, and they had a big long ramp that had cars in it, and the dispatch office was about the center of it on the side, and they could look out and see what number of vehicles was out there. That they could issue out the vehicles they wanted to go. So we had big garages there that worked on vehicles, things like that. And I was with the parts department. And I had a big, nice parts department where we kept the parts and things like that. And I've got pictures here somewhere, as you can see them later on, of all of us that slept there in that little place. There was three of us in one room and four in another one. So we ran the motor pool. I was at home when the war started. Okay. I was civilian at that particular time. In fact, my dad and I was sitting out tobacco. And actually, it was one Sunday night when I hit Pearl Harbor. And then that was in May that Dad and I was sitting out tobacco. And I was single, nothing to keep me out. So we were sitting out tobacco. I said, Dad, I'm going to volunteer and go to the Air Force because I want to get where I want to go. Well, he said, help me finish setting the tobacco. So I helped him set out the tobacco. After I got the tobacco set out and everything like that, I went off to Evansville, Indiana, to the draft board over there, and I was the draft board, and told them I was going to volunteer. So they said, well, they took my name, phone number, address, thing like that. We've got a quota for the month. So you go on back, if we need you, we'll call you. I went back home in about 3 or 4 days, I got a letter. They had one fellow that knew wouldn't pass the service. So they sent me a letter to come and to take his place. So I went to Fort Bend, Indiana, which was where we all went that particular time. And I was in there for about 2 or 3 weeks, I guess, or better, before they swore me in. Because I was eating free and everything like that. But I asked this old sergeant, where I signed up, what should I bring? Oh, I don't know. Probably bring a razor, toothbrush. Well, that's what I took. Razor and toothbrush. Figured it'd be about 2 or 3 days to be able to sign things. About 2 or 3 weeks where I was. It was the same clothes and everything like that. You know, so there was several of us in that condition. But finally, in about 2 or 3 weeks, they called us up. There's about 12, 14 of us, swore us in. And they took us in to put us on the train. And it seemed like we've traveled all the way to California and back, and then they took us all down to Biloxi, Mississippi. 'Cause I said I was at Greensboro, and I'd left Atlanta and gone up there and up there, just getting prepared to go over. She made up her mind she had never traveled any further from home by herself except from Dawsonville to Atlanta. That's the furthest she'd ever traveled by herself. And so she decides that I'm going up there to see him in Greensboro. So she's bundled up her clothes and everything like that. She came to Greensboro, and she told the MPs at the gate to page me. They told us, well, she's getting a new uniform. He's got to get all of his signatures and everything like that on his uniform before that they can release him. So we had to be inspected and everything like that. We got our chevrons and all the things like that. We was on our uniforms, new ones. So after that, then they released us. I met her at the gate then. So I had to be back at midnight. So that was the last I saw her until I got back in Atlanta, after I got back overseas. Well, I had just moved out of Paris that night, that afternoon actually. In fact, there was a buddy of mine, we had a rifle and everything, still had the cosmetic and everything in them like that, when they shipped them over. Well, I'd cleaned mine out. He hadn't. I said, Cooper, come on, let's clean the rifle out. I said, come on, you don't know when you're going to need it. So we cleaned his rifle out, and I was transferred then to Corp in France. Next morning I got up and went down to pick him up, and some other troopers down there to bring him up where I was. So I sure was glad you had me clean that rifle out. They came around and handed out ammunition. He said, I was glad I had it cleaned out, because he dropped a paratroopers in Paris that night, and they're all dressed in GI clothing. And the way they caught them is the way they ate like GIs did. They used a fork, once in a while they used a knife for eating peas and things like that, and they didn't complain about the food. Well, the GIs always complained about the food. That was normal. What they didn't do any complaining, because they never had food like that. So they was glad to get it. And so that's the way they recognized, and the MPs picked them up. And Corp in France. Yeah. And a day or two after that, they sent us to Erden, Germany. In fact, I was there in Corp in France, and heard they've taken some boys to Erden, Germany. And I went and asked my captain, I said, how about going to Erden, Germany? You're not going. So I told him I wanted to go, gave him a highball, turned around, walked out, got outside the motor pool a little ways out there in the lot where the vehicles was. I saw a captain that was going. I said, Captain, I'd like to go to Erden, Germany. And then I didn't much more than get away from him, but I saw another that was going. I told him the same thing. So, well, he's got somebody to take your place? Yeah. And so in 30 minutes, my captain came back and told me to get some things together, you're going to Germany. Oh yeah, I was a colonel. But one day he wanted me to drive him, and I took him to this castle that's in France. You've seen his pictures of these medieval castles, things like that. I went in one of them. And I was just on the main floor, and looking down through here's a valley. It looked like it was half a mile down there to the trees thing down there on the mountainside. And I was sitting in there, looking down the colonel. He was sitting in another room, and the family, like that. I don't know what was going on or anything like that, but he was talking to them about it after the war was over with. So I figured it's something about spy work or something like that. So, but I said, I guess it's an hour or so like that before I carried him back. That's one of those old medieval castles. I've seen pictures of them like that looked like about a half mile down was the bottom of the castle, things like that. I wished I had it, but I lost contact with all of them. Because we were scattered everywhere. There's one boy that I was sleeping in the same room with, and in Erden, Germany. Well, his name was Schroeder, and he was a German, relatives like, but he was still an American soldier. And he and I went from Corp in France up to Erden, Germany, was stationed there together like that, discharged together, came back on the same ship, and I never knew what happened to him after that. Well, I don't know, sometimes it's happy because when you found out the war was over, you rejoiced and celebrated. But then, normal life. You live in a normal life because you're away from home, things like that, but just you enjoyed fellowship with one another. Well, they just told us about it. Now, when Japan surrendered, it's altogether different story. I was in Germany, and you had thought there was a battle going on. We wasn't supposed to have any ammunition at all. But it sounded like it was in a battle. Because GIs out there with the rifles and shooting and firing, and there was the flare guns going off. The ordeal of the day, that night, he liked to run over some people like that because the flare gun went off right in front of him and blinded him. So this is things that's going on then. Just people celebrating. Because the war was over with. Because you take every one of us, I don't care who he was or where he was, overseas, he was sweating out going to Japan. Because the infantry or the Air Force, whatever it was, they're still sweating out going to Japan. I tell you, we was glad to see it. Because you knew that the war would be over with. And people say, oh, look at the people here. Look what they did to Pearl Harbor. People don't think about this. People killed at Pearl Harbor. Why would you do people that way too? Doing to others, you do them. You're glad to get home. I was discharged in Augusta, paid off, and get back the best way you could. Get to Atlanta, because that's where my wife was living at that particular time in Atlanta. And so, well, I'll catch a bus and go back, which I regretted later. I could pay $10, caught a taxi from Augusta, and gone to Atlanta, and been there in a few hours by waiting for the bus. The bus broke down, and it was midnight before I ever got to Atlanta. I'll tell you, you can't explain it until you experience it. Well, it's a holiday that you respect. You just realize, the people that have given their lives and things like that. It's what it meant to you.